Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to the Low Show. I am your host Lauren O'Brien, and today we are doing a recap of the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and we are previewing the Final Four matchups for this Friday's Final Four in Phoenix. As you guys know, this past weekend, the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 took place in regionals in Fort Worth, Texas, and in Sacramento. I was fortunate enough to go to the Sacramento Regional, so I caught some games there. I did unfortunately miss Friday's games between Minnesota and UCLA and LSU and Duke, and I did not see Monday's game of TCU versus South Carolina, but I caught a lot. So stay tuned. I've posted content about that. Check out my Instagram at the Low Show Podcast, and then also I launched a new website. It's thelowshowpodcast.com. So on there, it's just a portfolio of all the work I've done, a lot of podcast episodes, some blogs I've written. So check it out if you want to. I have some interesting things written on there. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So I'm going to focus on the teams that will be playing this Final Four weekend. So that's UConn, South Carolina, Texas, and UCLA. So let's get straight into it. With UConn, they took on UNC in the Sweet 16, and like they've been doing to teams all season, they've beat them pretty handily. I mean, Sarah Strong coming out with 21 and 10, and then Blanca Quinones with 16 off the bench. Again, UConn just has so many players that can contribute. A lot of teams rely super heavily on one person, and UConn is one of those teams that don't. I mean, you never know if AZ Fudd is going to go off, if Sarah Strong, Quinones, Ashlyn Shade, anybody on UConn has the capability of going off. And I think we've seen that all season. So UNC really just couldn't keep up with UConn. It's been great to watch UConn play this tournament because, as I mentioned before in my bracketology stream, UConn didn't have the hardest strength of schedule, so a lot of people were a little bit hesitant to pick them to win the national championship just because they've had a lack of tough opponents outside of Tennessee and Notre Dame early in the season. So watching them play a strong team with UNC and coming out with a pretty convincing win definitely reassured some people that UConn was the right pick to win the national champion, and I think they're going on to show that they have a very strong chance of winning this national championship. And then in the Elite Eight, they took on Notre Dame, who upset Vanderbilt in the Sweet 16. A lot of people really wanted the matchup between Gino Auriemma and Shea Ralph. Shea Ralph played for Gino at UConn, won Most Outstanding Player there, and she actually was an assistant coach to Gino for a very long time before taking the job at Vanderbilt. And obviously a lot of people wanted Michaela Blakes. However, Notre Dame pulled that one out by 2, led by Hannah Hidalgo, who is continuing to prove that she is one of the best guards in college basketball. She also had a big role in this UConn game. Obviously, she came out and was really the only person that UConn had trouble containing. She came out and had 22 points. Then also 11 rebounds as a guard. Hidalgo is a phenomenal rebounding guard, and she's consistently in the double digits. But, like I mentioned before, UConn just has so many weapons that Hidalgo cannot do it herself. I mean, Strong came out again with 21. Sarah Strong is one of the best players, if not the best player in college basketball. She's extremely hard to guard. Is 6'2", but can battle inside and also shoot the three super well. I mean, she already had an outstanding freshman season last year, but I think this year she's gotten even better. And then Blanca Quinones, right, the Ecuadorian freshman, she came off with 20 off the bench and then 8 boards as well. And then AZ Fudd, doing AZ Fudd things, also added 13. So UConn's a pretty diverse team when it comes to scoring, lots of different weapons. Notre Dame obviously overachieved this tournament. A lot of people had them losing. I mean, they already had upset Ohio State, and they beat Vanderbilt as well. So a lot of people were like, oh wow, this is a Cinderella team. I'm going to call them a Cinderella because realistically in the women's tournament, a 6 seed making a deep run is a Cinderella story. But UConn is UConn, and the 1 seeds are so much better than everyone else, and unfortunately that's the case year after year. Occasionally you'll get a 3 seed in the Final Four, but not much. We all know that UConn's going to play this Friday against South Carolina. And when looking at South Carolina, they're a very, very dangerous team. I mean, coming out of the SEC, we know they're battle tested. They have so many weapons. Like UConn, you don't know who's going to go off for South Carolina. Is it going to be Joyce Edwards, Raven Johnson, Tessa Johnson, Medina Okot? I mean, they have so many weapons, and they're long and they're scrappy and they play phenomenal defense. And they played UConn in last year's national championship and they lost. So there's definitely more motivation for that game. And when looking back at their Sweet 16 and Elite 8 performances this past weekend, I think they have a good shot to beat UConn. I mean, first they played Oklahoma in the Sweet 16, and it was close at first, but South Carolina's defense is what carried them over. Chavez had 21 points, which is great for a freshman going up against South Carolina. And Beers adding 14, which we all know she's going to do because Reagan Beers is one of the best post players in college basketball. I thought South Carolina did a great job of containing everyone else. And honestly, Oklahoma has a turnover problem, and that's been the case for the past couple seasons. Oklahoma is one of the 2 teams to actually beat South Carolina this season. They actually took them down in overtime. But in that last game, when they beat South Carolina, every single thing went right. They had multiple players in double figures. Verhulst, Beers, Chavez, Sahara Williams, everyone was contributing for them. This time, though, South Carolina's suffocating defense, they weren't allowed to do that. And on top of that, South Carolina, so many threats. Tania Latson, the transfer from Florida State, who was last year's scoring champion, gave them 28. Again, Raven Johnson, who I'm so happy she stayed another year in college because I think this season she has completely upped her draft stock and she's become such a better shooter. I mean, I think back to the Final Four game a couple years ago where Caitlin Clark was supposed to close out on Raven Johnson and just kind of like shooed her hand at her while she was shooting and she missed the 3. And I think Raven Johnson has improved her shooting tremendously. She has really stepped into the lead role on this South Carolina team, and Dawn Staley has mentioned multiple times how crucial of a piece Raven Johnson is to South Carolina's success. And then again, I do want to give some praise to Agat McKeer coming off the bench, the freshman, who's been solid for them all season. I mean, she had double figures in this game. She gets out there, she rebounds, she's long, plays good defense, and that's the case for a lot of people on South Carolina. So now moving on, I want to cover Texas. Texas took on Kentucky in their Sweet 16 game, playing in Fort Worth, which might be a little bit of an advantage because when watching the games on TV, you could see a lot of orange in that crowd. And it's such an advantage when you have your fans there. Why it was so competitive between Texas and South Carolina for that third 1 seed. That third 1 seed got to go to Fort Worth. And obviously Texas wants to play in Fort Worth because they're based in Texas and they're going to get a lot of fans there. But also South Carolina, their fans travel super well. Texas is not that far. Sacramento, on the other hand, is all the way across the nation. Is a 6-hour flight. And a lot of people don't want to make that long of a flight for just a weekend. So playing in Texas was obviously the goal. It didn't happen for the Gamecocks, but they still had a decent amount of fans in Sacramento. Now Texas, they really just beat Kentucky from the jump. I mean, there was really no contest in the second half. Madison Booker is one of the best players in college basketball. She's able to get to her mid-range shot so well. She could score at all three levels. And she does a great job of just like rising above her defender and hitting that little mid-range pull-up. It's one of the best pull-up jumpers in college basketball. She's young. She's still going to be in college next year. So when she's eligible for the WNBA draft, she will definitely be a lottery pick. And I stand by that. Rory Harmon, of course, will be in the draft next year. She is a senior. And she's just a phenomenal point guard. She does what she does. She commands the offense. She distributes the ball. She is one of the best point guards in college basketball. She can score. She can pass. And everything you want from a point guard, Rory Harmon can do. And then Jordan Lee, of course, giving us 18 points in that Kentucky game. Jordan Lee, one of the more underrated players on Texas's roster, but one of the most crucial to their success because she takes a lot of attention off of Booker and Harmon because teams go in and they focus. They're like, okay, we can't let Madison Booker get to the rim. We can't let her get into her mid-range. So a lot of teams will cheat over off of Jordan Lee. And Jordan Lee does a great job of hitting that three. She also does a great job of running in transition. So Rory Harmon can just kick it up to her and she has an easy layup. So she just does all of the little things that Texas needs to be successful. Kentucky, it was just a story of how poorly they started off the game. We know Kentucky's a very long team, especially with Hassett, Strack, and Key on their roster, and Texas realistically is not that long outside of Bray Cunningham and Kyra Oldacre. But Texas had no problem with Kentucky's length. In fact, Kentucky looked like they were getting bullied by Texas. I mean, they had 24 turnovers this game. So it just goes to show how good Texas's defense is. And then Clara Strack is becoming a household name in the SEC in college basketball. And we know that she's always going to have a good game, right? She did have 16 that game. But with Kentucky, it was a story of two halves. First half did not go well. They were turning the ball over a lot. They just couldn't make shots. In the second half, they played a little bit better, but not much, right? When you shoot, 19 for 51 from the field, there's not a lot you can do. 37%, but you just can't have a poor first quarter like they did. It was 11-29 after the first, and they just dug themselves in a hole that they couldn't get themselves out of. And then, of course, Texas absolutely destroyed Michigan in the Elite Eight. That was just a good old-fashioned butt whooping. Laid it on them from the jump, and they just had everybody contributing. Booker, Oldacre, Justice Carlton, Brea Cunningham. Texas's defense is what really surprised me in these past two rounds. Because everyone you're playing in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 are good basketball teams. Both Kentucky and Michigan were highly ranked teams all season. And the ability to cause Kentucky to have 24 turnovers. And then also Michigan shot so poorly. What Michigan needed to do to win was, first off, pray. But second off, they needed big games from their sophomore trio, Olsen, Swords, and Holloway. And Texas just played such great defense on them that it wasn't able to happen. Silas Swords, 3-point assassin, big shooter, huge part into Michigan's offense, shot 3 for 15. 3 for 15. You can't shoot like that and expect to win. And then, okay, maybe if one of the three of them didn't have a good game, but the other two also shot not so good. Mila Holloway going 4 for 14. Olivia Olsen, 2 for 13. Yes, Swords and Holloway were both in double figures, but they just couldn't get anything going offensively. Texas just destroyed them from the jump. And like, I don't know what else to say other than Michigan, I expected a closer game considering that they were ranked so high all season. And then I was like, okay, maybe their sophomore trio can get something going. I wasn't worried as much inside because it's like, all right, like Sofocanic, she's 6'5". Maybe she'd be able to hang with Bray Cunningham and Kyra Oldacre, but again, that wasn't the case. So Texas they look very scary going into this Final Four round, where they will face UCLA. So let's talk about UCLA for a second. They played Minnesota in the Sweet 16, and they had a pretty good game. They won pretty convincingly. One of UCLA's strengths is being able to have multiple people contribute. You really don't know who's going to be the leading scorer that night for UCLA just because they have 4 potential WNBA players on their roster. And the Minnesota game, I love Minnesota's little Cinderella run. Such a cool moment when Amaya Battle, the hometown girl from Minneapolis, hits the game winner against Ole Miss to send them to the Sweet 16. It was so cool. And I hate to see their season come to a close. But when you go up against Kiki Rice, Lauren Betts, Gianna Neepkins, Gabriela Jaquez, Angela Dugalich, and Charlize Ledger-Walker, it's not a really easy thing to do to beat them. And Kiki Rice is a great point guard. She will be drafted in April. And she had 21 that game, right? And one thing that's cool about UCLA is we know Lauren Betts is one of the best players in college basketball. That's undisputed. But Lauren Betts can have a game where she doesn't have 35 points like she did against Oklahoma State. She doesn't need to do that because there's other contributors on their roster. Yes, she still had 16 points, which is great. And then Dugalich, right, giving them 13. This team is not necessarily deep, but they run a 7-person rotation that's pretty effective. They run a 7-person rotation with very, very solid players, including 4 WNBA players, future pros for all of them, and a lot of senior leadership on this roster, right? They have 6 seniors, their entire starting lineup, plus Dugalich, all seniors. And, right, Minnesota fought, but it's not enough to beat UCLA. The 1 seeds in women's college basketball are just many moons better than everyone else. Even the 2 seeds. I mean, look at Texas, Michigan. Michigan's a 2, and Texas beat them pretty handily. So I think the 1 seeds are just honestly in a league of their own. And then when we jump to the Elite 8, when they took on Duke, this game was absolutely electric. There were so many UCLA fans at the game because the game was in Sacramento and it's super close to LA, like a 5-hour drive, which many people made. So much fun. And I was really nervous because Duke came out hard and they were winning. They were up at half. Taina Mayer coming off of a big game against LSU. I mean, they had a lot of momentum coming into this game, and it was just a little bit scary for UCLA fans to see their success in the first half. And credit to UCLA for making some adjustments. They were forcing it inside a lot. They were turning it over a lot in the first half, and that's what the difference was. But I have to shout out Angela Dugalich for coming off the bench and giving them 15. And she just would make the play when it needed to be made. If they needed a rebound, she was there. If they needed a bucket, she would get one. And what was really inspiring is I attended the press conference after this game, and they had Corey Close, Lauren Betts, and Angela Dugalich at the stand. And somebody asked a question about, do you think you should be starting? Something like that. Because honestly, at any other school, I think Dugalich would be a starter. She'll go play pro, and she'll have a very successful pro career. And she said something really inspiring, and she was like, hey, at the beginning of the season, I had a meeting with Coach, and I told her, Like, I don't want the team to think about who's going to be in the starting lineup each week. I don't want that to be a distraction, so I will take the role of being the sixth woman. And I just thought that was so cool and just such an example of a great teammate to come out and say, you know what? I should be a starter. I can be a starter at anywhere. But I'm going to realize that maybe me thinking about myself is not beneficial to the team. And she plays the amount of minutes as a starter. So realistically, it doesn't make that much of a difference. UCLA runs a very short 7-person rotation, and I don't think Sienna Betts played in the second half, or if she did, it was only a couple minutes. So it was just a 6-person rotation. And Corey Close did a good job of getting people in and out for rests. I think honestly the difference in that game was the second half. They were just able to open some more things up. Neepkins hit a very big 3 to kind of fully shift the momentum and give them the lead at like 47-45 in the third. And then obviously Lauren Betts was Lauren Betts that game, right? 23 points, 10 boards. She's phenomenal defensively. Duke is a very long team, but they're not long enough to beat 6-7, and I think UCLA did a good job of trying to exploit Fournier because she picked up 3 fouls early. She was in foul trouble the whole game, so she couldn't be as aggressive on Lauren Betts. And then also Duke coming in and giving them another score because UCLA struggled a lot in the first half, scoring-wise, was really only Lauren Betts. And then Duke was keying in on that and then doubling her, and they were poking that pass away a lot. But Duke coming in, giving them another threat to worry about, plus Neepkins hitting a 3 and just more people getting involved, really helped UCLA get the ball into Lauren Betts more, so she was able to go to work. I mean, she had a big second half. And then I do want to shout out Duke because, right, Taina Mayer also has the potential to be drafted. She's having a great season this year. I just came off of a big game against LSU, and then to put up 21 again against UCLA, she has such a quick trigger with her shot. Like, any ounce of daylight and that thing's going up, and most of the time it's going in. And then Duke, I commend them for being able to turn their season around the way they have, because I think a lot of people, including myself, wrote them off after the first month of the season where they fell to 3-5, and it was like, hey, this team came in ranked number 8 and they're just not performing the way that everyone expected. I'm just gonna forget about them and write them off and say, they don't have it this season. But to come out, turn their season around, win the ACC, get that 3 seed, and then take down Kim Mulkey and LSU, wow. And then, again, fight super hard with UCLA. So, all the flowers to Duke. Phenomenal season. I really hope Taina Mayer gets drafted because I think she can help a WNBA team. Or at least a professional roster. She'll probably go play overseas somewhere and she'll be great. Moving on, I want to preview this Final Four. So the 2 matchups we have are UConn versus South Carolina, and then Texas versus UCLA. So I'm going to start with UConn, South Carolina. We all know that this was the national championship game last season, and it wasn't exactly close. I mean, when you think back to it, yes, UConn had some pieces that they don't have this year. Obviously, they don't have Paige Beckers, they don't have Caitlin Chen. Yes, we know. Losing Paige sucks. But they still have Sarah Strong, and they still have AZ Fudd, who were honestly the main killers in that national championship game last year, especially Sarah Strong. When you look at the numbers, the stats from last year's game, they're pretty similar. So then I was thinking, I'm going to think back and think, why did UConn beat South Carolina by as much as they did? And it's just shooting. It's just shooting percentages. I mean, you cannot shoot 21 for 61 from the field, which is 34%, and expect to win a national championship. And they only had one person in double figures, right? Joyce Edwards. I do think South Carolina is a lot better this year. They obviously picked up Tania Latson from the portal. And then I think Raven Johnson's gotten better. Joyce Edwards got better. They picked up Medina Okot. This team looks different. I mean, Joyce Edwards has another year of experience under her belt. This team looks different. They're going to be good. I think this UConn game will be extremely good. And yes, I keep bringing up the argument of UConn's weak schedule, but I just, after their absolute whippings to UNC and Notre Dame, I don't think that's a valid argument anymore. It's going to be really tough. Will UConn struggle with South Carolina's length? I don't think so. Realistically, to win this game, though, they do need to be shooting well. And Gino came out and said something pretty interesting a couple weeks ago after the first and second rounds and was like, hey, why are we playing on new baskets with new basketballs that haven't been broken in yet? That's why the 3-point shooting percentages are really bad around the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. Like, we need to play with broken in baskets. And I 1,000% agree with that. Because I was even astonished when seeing some of the 3-point percentages from this weekend. I was like, wow, it is true that that's going on and that's affecting a lot of people. UConn and South Carolina are very deep teams. I think everyone is at this point, right? UCLA and Texas as well, because you can't just have two people that carry your team. You need to have a starting lineup of assassins, or even more than that, which is the case for a lot of these teams. So it's really tough to pick this game because South Carolina's playing great basketball. This might be the best game of the tournament because these teams are so evenly matched in a weird way. Like, play styles, they're not very similar, but UConn has the experience. They have Sarah Strong, AZ Fudd, and then South Carolina, right? They're coming back with a vengeance trying to win this game, and I think in order for them to win this game, though, they are going to have to guard the 3-point line. AZ Fudd cannot get loose. That is what killed them last year. In fact, she didn't even kill them at the 3-point line. It was mainly just getting to the bucket, getting free throws, and UConn just moves the ball so well. So it's just got to be guard the 3-point line, play to your strengths. I think they are able to exploit UConn inside. I like Sarah Strong, and Sarah Strong will be fine defensively. They'll all be fine defensively. I think it's just a matter of pounding it inside, getting them in some ball screens, seeing if you can get the switches you want to. It's a really tough game to pick, and I'm happy I don't have to pick it. But I think I'm going to have to go with UConn here, just the way that they're beating teams now, but I think this will be an extremely close game and can go either way. So don't take my word for it. I really would like to see South Carolina win this game. I'd like to see UConn win this game. Flip a coin. I don't know. It's going to be close. It's going to be really fun. Moving on to the other side, we have Texas and UCLA. Texas, UCLA, they're back in the Final Four. In fact, this is the same Final Four that there was last year. They're just playing different opponents. So, UCLA versus Texas. This game's taking place in Phoenix. I'm sure both teams will have a lot of fans there, especially UCLA. It sounded like a lot of the fans that I talked to there in Sacramento, because most of them were UCLA fans, were going to the Final Four. So it's obviously nice to have your fans there. They definitely give a little bit of a spark. It's nice to hear the loud cheering. It definitely gives a team a boost if they have that. What people don't remember is these teams actually played each other already, and UCLA's one loss of the season was to Texas. They played each other back in late November at the 4-team kind of tournament thing in Vegas. It had Texas, UCLA, South Carolina, and Duke all played there. Super cool event, actually. And it was a close game in the end, but the reason why Texas beat them was because of their slow start, which is something a little bit interesting to me because they also played Duke and came out with a little bit of a slow start. So I wonder if, I mean, you can't dig yourself in a hole in the first quarter. I think we saw that when Kentucky played Texas in the Sweet 16. They just dug themselves in such a deep hole after the first quarter that they weren't able to come back. And that's not good. And that's kind of what they did the last time they played each other. But UCLA has different weapons every time. Neepkins had a good game against them, so did Rice and Charlie Sledger-Walker. It's going to be close. Texas has good size, though. Oldacre is 6'6". Cunningham is super long. She's got very long arms. So I'm not as worried about Lauren Betts going off. It's such a tough game to pick. And then obviously Madison Booker and Rory Harmon on the other side. But I do think UCLA will pull this game out. And I think the reason will be because the 6 main people that play are all seniors and they just want it. They just want it really bad because they were embarrassed in last year's Final Four. Right? They didn't play Texas, but they played UConn. And I think they all felt that pain of we don't want to lose like this again, so they're going to come out super strong this time. And I think they also want to beat Texas because that's the only team that they lost to this season. And I think Corey Close will prepare them well. And I think it will be a good game. I think Madison Booker is your key, right? You got to stop Madison Booker. But ultimately, I think UCLA is going to pull this one out simply because of their seniors. Their leadership, their experience will carry them to victory. And then last time they played, also UCLA did have a turnover problem because Texas plays very, very good defense, and it will be challenging. But I definitely got UCLA. I really hope they win because I'm personally rooting for the Bruins. I love the seniors on their team. I think the content that they're all putting out on social media is super entertaining now. So if you haven't checked that out, they're just a super fun team to see off the court as well as on the court. And you can tell when they play too that their chemistry is super high and they genuinely look like they like each other, which is a good thing. That brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm super excited for the Final Four this weekend in Phoenix. And then obviously the national championship. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.